Hello, everybody, and welcome to the virtual storytelling comedy show for the Deals Go On exhibition. I'm your host, David Lawson. If you can at home, just switch to gallery view really quick because before we get to the actual show, just want to introduce you to some of the folks behind the Deals Go On exhibition, which is actually currently running at CLEEPCENTER on Monroe Street in Manhattan. If you go to sleepcenterny.org, that's CLEEPCENTER, that's center ER, not RE, sleepcenterny.org. And before we get into the performance tonight, I just want to introduce you to the curator, Seelman, if you could wave on gallery view here, all right. The public program curator, Haihong. All right, awesome. And the artist Kai, the reason we are all here tonight. Okay, fantastic, folks. So the Deals Go On exhibition, which is running, like I said, through November 7th, it is tied very closely in to our current president. In fact, you're going to notice some of the backgrounds that we're using tonight have to do, let's see if I can get the point. Oh, goodness, right there. They have to do with properties currently owned, but really run. We all know how that goes by our current president. So if you think you've wandered into some kind of 45th president love fest, quite the opposite. The backgrounds are purely satirical, folks, I promise you. What we are doing tied in to Kai's show of The Deals Go On is, because that show is so tied into our current president, we have some really funny stories tonight about themes that are adjacent to our current president. We have stuff like evil real estate, toxic masculinity, racism, homophobia, folks. We are all getting together tonight to laugh about these things because it's a lot better than crying about those things. So thank you all for being at this and not at the town hall that you could be watching tonight. Either one of those awful town halls. This is the true town hall you want to be at. So folks, I did ask you to go into gallery view just to get a hello from everyone. But if you could switch over to speaker view now, let's get to our first performer of these funny stories tied into the Deals Go On exhibition. Our first performer is a regular on the Sirius XM show, the Sirius XM show, Tell Me Everything. You can hear her on that. She is also a writer and performer for the Politipod podcast, which you can find on SoundCloud. Please welcome our first performer, Rhonda Hansome.
Wow. Oh my God. This is great. I'm so happy to be here. I was alone for my first time in my life. Oh, by the way, I better tell you, this is an evil real estate story. I was divorced from my husband of decades, and I left the celebrity-filled streets of Tribeca. And by chance, just by chance, I found an inexpensive apartment in a neglected Bed-Stuy brownstone. I was so depressed. The only time I ever laughed was when a visitor, well, actually, when every visitor said, "You should rent out your closet. You could get $800 a month." I just laughed at their faces. Who in the heck would pay $800 a month to live in a closet on Macon Street and Malcolm X and Bedford-Stuyvesant? Well, the joke was on me because it turns out a lot of people would pay, and pay a lot. I was adrift and so distracted, I didn't even notice that the center of the universe, the celebrity universe, had followed me to Bed-Stuy. I missed a huge red flag on the A train. Usually on the A train after Borough Hall, my fellow travelers are melanin gifted. But this one night that I got off the A train, I looked at all the people who were left in the car and I said, where are all of these white people going? Someplace for Scientology? I don't know. I finally got the message when the city repaved Nostrand Avenue and put benches in at well-lit bus stops on Fulton Street. I saw white people. Yes, yeah. They were walking the streets at midnight with their heads in their iPhones, not even looking up in their gentrified neighborhoods. Blondes and redheads jogging with their little dogs, you know, and walking in their little shorts. And that was just the men. House after house on my block was sold and bought, changing the complexion of the block. This is when a broker, a real estate broker, urged me, hounded me for weeks to buy the house. He said it didn't matter that I was unemployed because my payments would not balloon for another 3 months. You gotta love those real estate brokers. But when the brown skin sister who wrote for the New York Post bought my building, I thought, I got this. Little did I know, I had dodged a subprime bullet, a subprime mortgage bullet. I had dodged only to get hit with a cannonball rent increase. Yeah. When my lease was almost up, sister landlady informed me I could stay 1 more year at double the rent. Did you hear me? Double the rent. My random extra work on movies and TV shows left me with $1,000 monthly to budget for my shelter. But because trust fund kids from I don't know where could afford to pay 3 times my reasonable rent, I had to leave in 3 months. I tweeted daily, Mayor de Blasio's affordable housing lottery is a joke. Hashtag de Blasio sucks. All I needed was a nice 1-bedroom for $1,000. After 9 months of looking and a complete emotional meltdown, I'll admit it, I bought a 1-bedroom co-op in the South Bronx. Did you hear me? I bought a co-op because I didn't earn enough money to qualify for affordable housing. Did I mention that the New York Affordable Housing Lottery is a joke? Hashtag, say it with me. De Blasio sucks. I live in the Bronx in an area called Soundview. There are a lot of sounds. There's sirens, screams, gunshots, yeah, but very little view, unless you count the body chalk outlines on the ground. My first week, there was a murder around the corner, but now after 5 years, I'm used to the emergency vehicles investigating the monthly shootings. When people hear that I live in the South Bronx, they're all concerned for my safety. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. People only get hurt by those that they know, they trust, and usually get shot by people they love. So at this age, I'm adjusting to my new neighborhood and trying to make new friends in Fort Apache, the Bronx. Oh, speaking of movies, see how I did that? Down the street, literally down the street, just off the Bruckner Highway, York Studios has built a $100 million studio for movie and television production. So maybe I can get new headshots and update my resume and show the head of the studio where to get the best roast pork in the area. Well, though the Bronx isn't burning, the heat that I feel is the center of the celebrity universe just breathing down my neck. And that's my rough real estate story. Thank you so much.
Rhonda Hansome, everyone. And please do check her out. Check that on SoundCloud, the Politipod podcast. She's a writer, performer for that. Rhonda Hansome, thank you so much. Goodness gracious. I love that story. I've heard that story live when we used to have live shows. And really hearing that story again here tonight in the Deals Go On show really gets me scared about what evil real estate is going to happen after this whole thing is over. It's nice to think about when this whole pandemic's going to be over, but oh boy, the evil real estate's going to get pretty evil. So thank you again, Rhonda Hansome. Our next performer, you could hear him on the very popular storytelling podcast, Risk and Story Collider. Please welcome David Hu.
All I gotta say is rent reduction. When I graduated college in 2000, I never expected corporate America to be just one glorified high school shithole. You got the jocks, you guys, the overachievers, you got the drama queens, and you got the bullies. I never did well in high school. I was an outcast. I was into like Limp Biscuits and drinking raspberry Snapple and skateboarding. So you can imagine I didn't do well in corporate America. I was needy, I was insecure, and I had a hard time keeping a job for longer than a couple months. And I decided to go back to school and learn how to fix computers. And my mom and dad always told me, wherever you go, you're going to have to learn how to adapt. And in 2005, I got a job on Wall Street, working on a trading floor, fixing computers for traders. I never imagined to work on Wall Street in my entire life, but the money was really good. And on my first day at a job, I met my coworker, Veronica, and Veronica showed me around the trading floor. It felt like a glorified high school cafeteria, just rows and rows of tables, everyone sitting elbow to each other and just staring at their large computer monitors, just looking at flashing numbers. It was insane, and I could feel like the intensity in the room. It's like people cursing and screaming and yelling, and Veronica introduced me to our team. Our team was not as friendly as Veronica, just a bunch of like tech bros, where they're pleated Docker khakis and their, button down shirts and Eddie Bauer. They all had an attitude, like their shit stink because they knew how to like basically set up TCP/IP and set up computers to talk to each other. So I was like, yeah, whatever. It felt like a glorified high school. And that afternoon, it's my second day at the job. Veronica pulls me to the side. She says, Dave, don't trust anyone on this team. If you are smart, you will quit this job and find a new one. And it's not like the most positive thing to say to someone who just started a new job. And the following day, she quit. And I was put in the fire to support an entire trading floor. And I told myself, you know what? I have a second chance at corporate America. It's really good money. And I just can't be needy or insecure. I got to face my fears. So every day just felt like being in the emergency room. Traders cursing and screaming when they can't log on to their machines or their applications are down because there's $1 million on the line. They can't execute trades. And they just like took it out on me. It was definitely took an emotional and physical toll on me. But the money was just so good. And I felt like that was my main goal, was making a lot of money. And it kind of like got my mind off who my coworkers were. And the only person that really had my back was my manager, Scott. And Scott always appraised me for my hard work and the amount of time I spent in the office. And throughout the years, I definitely made more and more money and did really well with the company until 2016 when Trump got elected. And ironically, we got a new CEO at the company and everyone was getting laid off every day. And people are getting scared. People don't want to put in the extra hours to do their work. Everyone wants to just just collect a paycheck because they don't know what's going to happen. And plus, everyone's unhappy that they may get laid off. But for myself, I continued going that extra mile, always coming into work on time, always, basically getting accolades from my manager, and people on my team just started to get jealous because they knew I was raising the bar and making them look bad. And all my coworkers would complain to Scott. and Scott was put in a really difficult position. And Scott started to take sides with the assholes that I worked with. And I remember every morning I would walk into the office, and he would always have like a surprise meeting. And he would bring our team into a boardroom, and he would always put me on the spot. One morning, he brought up a PowerPoint with a list of courses I took at the company: Excel, communicating effectively, time management, and getting along with your coworkers. And he told me, Dave, what the fuck are you doing? I didn't hire you to be a scholar. I hired you to fix computers on a trading floor. Why the fuck are you taking Excel? Do you want to be an accountant? Do you want to like basically balance numbers? Dave, just do your work and stop making trouble. And it wasn't very encouraging, and things just started to get worse. Every morning I would come into the office and my garbage can would be missing, or my chair would be readjusted. And there were days that my keyboard and mouse would stop working because someone took a knife and cut the cables out of my computer. And me being a desktop support tech, I didn't mind, because that's what I did every day, was replace keyboards and mice for traders. And it got so bad that one day someone rearranged the keys on my keyboard and it said, fuck you. I really felt like quitting, and I just felt like the pressure was getting to me. And I took a vacation one day to go see my friend in Atlanta. And I remember I was over at my friend's house, and I got a call from my coworker, Joe, telling me one of the traders is having issues with the system. He's like trying to execute $1 million trade, and we don't know how the system works, and you're the only one that knows how to do it. And I told him, you know, I'm on vacation. I'll be back in the office tomorrow. And he says, okay, the first thing you got to do is help this guy when you get into the office first thing in the morning. And apparently there was a snowstorm that happened, and I couldn't get into the office on time. So I was a day late. When I arrived the following morning, I noticed my garbage can was missing, my keyboard and mouse was working, and my chair was not readjusted. So I knew something bad was about to go down. And all of a sudden, I get a phone call from Human Resources to come see them. And when you get a phone call from Human Resources, it's like a death wish. And I went upstairs, and he sat me down, and the woman's name was Kathleen with her dark frame glasses. And she was like, Dave, do you want a bottle of water or a box of Kleenex? Because I know this is a really hard day for you. I said, no, I'm fine. She goes over my severance. I've been with the company for over 12 years. And she says, you'll get 3 weeks pay for every year you worked. So that's 36 weeks of pay I got, plus an additional 3 months not to look for a job yet. And as she was reading me each bullet point of my severance, she kept on interrupting, saying, Dave, are you okay? Are you sure you're okay? You appear to be taking this awfully well. How come you're taking this so well? This is not a day to smile because you just lost your job, Dave. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It's like she was just kind of like, how the unprofessionalism, almost like trying to like, she wanted me to actually cry and feel upset. So after she gave me my severance package, I remember going back down to the office, and Scott pulls me into a boardroom, and he said, what the fuck are you doing, Dave? You make me look like an asshole. I just gave you another chance on life, and this is what you fucking did to me? And he brought all my coworkers into the office, and he sat us all down, and he was like, you know what? Everyone, Dave has something to say to you. And as I was about to say, you know, it was really great working with you for over these past 12 years, Scott interrupted me and says, you know what? Dave got fired. Dave, if you would have just shut the fuck up and just did your work, you would be still employed today, but you had to go the extra mile, and that's why you got fired. Everyone, don't be like Dave. And he got security to escort me out. It was kind of like, I felt happy, I felt sad, a bunch of emotions were running through me, because this is the first time I got fired from a job for actually doing my work and doing it well. And I remember I got back home, and just looking back at it today, you know, although corporate America does feel like a glorified high school. Sometimes you can't stoop to the level of like the bullies, the jocks, the drama queens, and the overachievers, because you got to be an individual and you got to stand up on your own. Thank you.
All right, David Who. Thank you so much. Keep it going for David Who at home. I see you folks cheering there on gallery view. Yeah, again, you can hear David Who on those popular storytelling podcasts, Risk and the Story Collider. And boy, golly, let me tell you, if anybody out there needs a reason to not miss going into work, studying Excel, and then having your trash can stolen, that's a good reason to be thankful you don't have to go into work anymore, unless you are watching and you're like, hey, I have to go into work. Well, then, thank you for doing that. And hopefully no one's stealing your trash can and writing FU out on your keyboard like we just heard in Dave's story. So, folks, the Deals Go On exhibition, as I say, it really ties into our current president. That's why Dave was performing in front of the Trump property in Chicago. It's why I here am performing in front of the Trump property in D.C. And we just heard stories about evil real estate, toxic masculinity, awful workplaces, stuff that pertains to our president. I'm going to perform a quick story about really the moment it really became real. Election week 2016, the Sunday before Election Day, I was riding the subway home to Queens, where I live. This woman gets on my subway and begins ranting at us, saying, we cannot elect Donald Trump on Tuesday. It would be an embarrassment to the world. She says we have to vote for Hillary Clinton because Jesus would have wanted us to vote for Hillary Clinton. She then says, and Jesus can't be wrong because Jesus murdered thousands of Jewish babies. Everyone on my subway car is like, wait, what? And she doesn't switch cars. She stays on my subway car and just repeats this point over and over about Jesus murdering thousands of Jewish babies. The guy sitting next to me is like, miss, you lost us with that last part. She stays on this car, stop after stop, just giving the spiel, not like going on to the next car, stop after stop after stop. Eventually, it's my stop, and people have been yelling at her, miss, you can't say that. That's not true. You can't say that. I get off the train, the doors close, the train speeds away. I'm standing there on the platform thinking, that is not a good sign for Tuesday. Then Tuesday comes, Election Day 2016. I vote at PS 84 like I always do here in Queens. That night, I didn't want to just stay at home. I really wanted to go out, do something else. I just didn't want to watch the news all night. It's not like I knew it was going to happen. It's not like I'm Nostradamus or anything. So instead of staying at home, I got tickets to see the Brooklyn Nets play the Minnesota Timberwolves because, for one, I love NBA basketball. For two, I thought watching millionaires with last names like Lopez, Lynn, Vasquez, Muhammad, like voting against Trump twice. It was a really great game that night, back and forth all night. Ja Rule was at the game. They put him up on the scoreboard. He was waving and smiling. This is a few months before the Fire Festival when Ja Rule was not smiling. Game comes down to last possession. Brooklyn makes a big stop. 14,000 arms go up into the air. Brooklyn wins. And it's 9:30 on election night 2016. And near me, all the phones start coming out. And at first, everyone's like, oh, yeah, this is what the media wants us to think. They're just trying to make the election seem close so everyone keeps watching. I think a lot of us were thinking that election night 2016 at 9:30. But by the time I got downstairs, it was already looking more serious. And I get on the subway, and at every station, I was checking my phone, and the election was looking more and more serious. I get off the train. I'm walking home in my neighborhood. There's a guy a few paces in front of me who was saying on his phone, while in tears, I think Russia hacked it. And that guy was the real Nostradamus, because here we are, folks, almost 4 years later. And yeah, I think Russia hacked it. I get home and I do exactly what I didn't want to do that night. I end up watching hours of news coverage. I fall asleep around 2 in the morning. I wake up a few hours later. It's 5 a.m. And they hadn't declared anything officially before I fell asleep at 2. But now it's 5. But every fiber of my being is saying, David, don't look at your phone. just go back to sleep, but I can't help myself. I click the home button on my phone twice, and I see that our 45th president is going to be that guy right there, that guy whose name we've seen on horrible hotels and casinos forever. And I do not get back to sleep, folks. And in many ways, I have not slept since. Thank you so much, everyone, folks. Let's keep this show rolling. We got 2 more performers for you with some stories that pertain to our current president, like that show, The Deals Go On, which is at Sleep Center until November 6th, sleepcenterny.org, if you want to check out that exhibition. But let's get to our second to last performer. He's an award-winning screenwriter whose work has been featured on the ABC Discovers Showcase. He recently appeared on the CW TV show Mysteries Decoded. Please welcome Andrew Sanford.
Hey, hello. Thank you, David. Thank you so much. Like I said, my name is Andrew Sanford. I am a screenwriter and performer, and right now a little bit of a literal talking head, which I appreciate. I'm also half white and half black, or a mulatto, if you will, or a day walker for the Halloween Wesley Snipes crowd out there, or also a half-frickin', as I was called quite often in high school, which you can't really get like super mad about because it's kind of clever. Being half white and half black would always lead to some like conflicting situations when I was growing up. For instance, I was always like a white friend to my black friends and a black friend to my white friends, like, and that made them feel like they could say certain things to me that like probably weren't okay, but like were maybe fine. Like I'd have some white friends that would be like, that Jay-Z album's not very good, right? The new one, Blueprint. And I'd be like, okay, I don't know why you felt like you needed to tell me that. Or I'd have some black friends who would be like, yo, Elton John, he's fantastic. And I was like, yeah, you're right. You don't have to be shy about that. You can like Elton John, man. It's cool. But yeah, half white, half black. My father is African American, a little Native American sprinkled in there. My mother is a honky, and they were always very like understanding about their racial roles in my life. They let me know that I was black and I was white, and I appreciate that. I like being mixed race, and this continued even on into when I got older. I did stand up for a few years, and my parents were just like, we like your comedy, but we don't think you do enough race jokes. And I was like, oh, isn't that sweet? Like, they're like, not only are they racially understanding in their love life and how they raise their kids, but in their comedy choices as well. It turns out they were just trying to use my stand-up as a way to funnel like 25 years of built-up racism. Like, my dad left the room. My mom was like, you should do a joke about how black people make their girlfriends buy pot for them. And I was like, Mom, come on. Like, you have to say that. My dad comes back from the room. You should do a joke about how white women don't put it out. I was like, Dad, you could at least, everybody in the story has whispered so far when they said something embarrassing. But the thing that they never really got into was a particular word, the N word. I won't say which one yet. Spoiler alert for the rest of this story. But because of that, it wasn't ever anything that had a big presence in my house, and because of that, I didn't really know about it growing up. I know that sounds ignorant, but that's just the kind of way that things were. And at one point, it led to a particular situation. We were living in Louisiana. I know. Buckle up. But we're in Louisiana, and I was at school, and the school that I was at, my mother was actually a volunteer for. So on occasion, I would try to use that to my advantage to go home a little bit early. If I was, like feeling sick, I would let my mother know, and then she would just bring me home because she was there already. So one day, I was feeling sick, and I went to the principal's office. The teacher, like I told my teacher let me leave, and I went to the principal's office, and they were just like, oh, the administrative assistant there, a nicer, older, honky woman, was just like, oh, well, your mother is actually not here right now, she's assisting with a field trip, but you can lay down on the couch that's right here. That'll be totally fine. You can just stay there until she gets back. Just lay down, get comfortable, feel better. I was like, all right, sweet. I'm not going back to class. So I lay down on the couch, and I would say about 20 minutes later, an African-American woman and her son, who is also African-American, comes marching into the room. Now, I'm in like second grade at this point, and I had never been faced with a confrontation like this. This woman was mad, and rightfully so. Her son was not feeling well, told his teacher, and the teacher would not let him leave the class. She was mad. She was furious, and again, rightfully so. And she was just like, "My son can't leave the class. He's sick. Meanwhile, you got some little white boy sleeping up on the couch." And I just kind of like curled up into a ball, really wanting to not be a part of this situation whatsoever. But she keeps yelling again. She's mad again. I understand. She's yelling. Eventually, the principal comes out, and she's yelling again, still about the white boy sleeping up on the couch. And the principal, also a honky, says, "Well, why is the white boy sleeping up on the couch?" And the administrative assistant's like, "Well, his mom's going to pay." He's like, "Will you just bring him into the back, please, so we can remove him from this situation?" So the administrative assistant comes over and gets me as they're still arguing and brings me to a back room. There's like some gym mats back there that I can sleep on. But as she's bringing me back, this sweet older white woman who was like maybe 3 inches taller than me at my like 4'5", looks me dead in the eyes and she says, "Did that nigger wake you up?" I know. And I was flabbergasted by this. I wish. The fact of the matter is, because I was not too familiar with this word, I just said, yeah. Like, you know, for the longest time, I thought if somebody called somebody that, like, most rap songs are just about somebody who, like, you know, wakes you up from a nap. So, you know, teach your children, let them know. And that was my experience.
Andrew Sanford. Oh, goodness gracious. Andrew Sanford. And you can follow him on Twitter at Sanford-Son. You can actually check out his award-winning screenwriting if you find him through there. Yeah, Andrew Sanford, goodness. I have heard, much like Rhonda's first story, I've heard Andrew do that live on stage back when we still had live on stage shows, and we will again one day. But I have to tell you, folks, the good folks here at the Deals Go On exhibition, they wanted us to be performing in front of these backdrops. And I thought it was such a cool idea. And let me tell you, hearing that particular word spoken by a giant face floating in the doorway of Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, I mean, I'm going to have to plug it. If the Deals Go On exhibition, which is at Sleep Center, New York through November 6th, sleepcenterny.org, if it's anything as conceptual as a giant face in the doorway of that building, telling that story, this is really an exhibition you have to check out. So Andrew, just, you're always a great writer performer, but some tech mastery there with that. And thanks for the nightmares also, but it's October. I could take those nightmares. Yeah, there you go. He's back. You know what? I'll spotlight that one more time. Look at this. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. All right. So folks, thank you so much for being here at the Deals Go On virtual storytelling comedy show. Again, I have been your host, David Lawson. We do have one more performer for you tonight. Her most recent stand-up comedy album is called Not the Gym Teacher. And in fact, she has been doing this really cool thing lately with brick film, which is the animation style. That's the one that kind of looks like Legos. She's been taking footage or some of her bits from on stage, and I have seen her stand up quite a bit. It really is something. But she's been turning it into brick film animation. So if you go to YouTube and look up Kelli Dunham, that's Kelli. Well, I think it's about to be on your screen in a second. What am I doing? AM radio here? Okay. Look her up on YouTube at Kelli Dunham. Our final performer tonight. Please welcome Kelli Dunham.
Hey, thank you so much, David. I was about to I'm at my home. I could produce some Legos, brick film Legos, but I wasn't quick enough to actually think about that. Yeah, thank you so much. So when I was a teenager, and other folks my age were, I don't know, drinking wine coolers and getting really bad blowjob, what I know now are really bad blowjobs in the back of their friend's borrowed Camaro. I was going to church 3 times a week and asking complete strangers, excuse me, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal savior? I was a banana pants, bananas, born again Christian, which made my banana pants, born again Christian mom very happy. But I was also a lifelong tomboy, and that made her very sad. One spring day in my sophomore year, I came home from school and I found this piece of folded paper on the kitchen table, and it had a Post-it note, newfangled Post-it notes. It was the 80s. And on the Post-it note, my mom had written, "This sounds like something you would love!" Exclamation point. I opened it up, and it was this glossy, full-color brochure for the Lord's Boot Camp Missionary Training Course. And it was full of smiling teenagers, I guess, being involved in missionary training, things like learning how to use power tools and asking complete strangers, excuse me, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal savior? Once I had this, and I thought, wow, that is something I would totally love. So once I had decided I was going to do it, I had to raise $1,200 in 3 months for the participation fee. And at first that seemed daunting, but then the adults in the church really got behind me. And they helped me do a car wash in the parking lot Sunday afternoon, and I sold popcorn after Wednesday night Bible study, and they even made like goodies for me for a bake sale. Now the Lord's Boot Camp, the glossy full color brochure said that, quote, the Lord's Boot Camp was no pamper camp. But when we arrived, we found they were really, really, really not kidding. It was basically an unimproved Florida swampland. And we slept in these tents that were covered in big blotches of mildew. It almost looked like a Guernsey cow. And the place where we were supposed to wash up, which they called God's bathtub, was just, like basically a swampy pond. It was attached to a drainage ditch in which lived 2 alligators. And when we asked our leaders about it, they said, no, do you really think that an alligator is going to eat 500 kids? And I don't think any of us thought 500, but doesn't even 1 seem like a lot? We got up at 5 a.m. each morning to run the Lord's Boot Camp obstacle course. It contained biblically named obstacles that our leaders said would help us develop the skills and traits we would need in order to serve God as a missionary. The first one was the Children of Israel's luggage, which was a bunch of decommissioned artillery boxes that had been filled with sand and then nailed shut. And then the names of the books of the Bible had been painted, each on one on each box. You'd approach them, they would be in a big jumbled heap. And then somebody from the team would yell, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And we'd have to put them in order found in the books of the Bible. The last obstacle of the Lord's Boot Camp obstacle course was a series of walls on which were painted things we would need to get over in order to be a good missionary. Like the first one was gluttony, then pride. And the last one, somewhat inexplicably, was sexual confusion. So the motto of the Lord's Boot Camp is get dirty for God, go lay a brick. And that's what we were out to use power tools. I learned how to saw. I learned how to mix cement by hand. I learned how to lay blocks. I learned to tie rebar. I was having a fantastic summer because it was all about being a tomboy. The only thing that was every noon, they would divide us up by, and I would go to the sent to Rugby to Grace, that was the name of our class, and the boys were sent to God's Gentleman. It seems like God's Gentleman was mostly about how to pick a Christian or how to attract a Christian spouse. It seemed to be sports, yes, theater, no. And From Rugby to Grace was about kind of grooming and being ladylike, and including a whole big section on makeup that started with a quote from the Lord's Boot Camp founder, Bob Bland. If the barn looks better painted, why not paint the barn? So anyway, except for that weird afternoon occurrence, I really had a great summer, and I returned home with this newfound zeal and also a new haircut. I had this spiral perm, again, it was the 80s, and I had bleached it or tried to bleach it like surfer blonde with actual bleach. And then that and 8 weeks of washing it in swamp water, I couldn't even get a comb through it. So one of my team members shaved it all the way down and just left me with a 6-inch rat tail in the back. And It was the 80s, so I looked great. So I, oh, and I also had a bunch of new muscles from, physically building God's kingdom. So when I dragged my very smelly, as you can imagine, duffel bag onto my mom's porch on my way home, on my return home, and I said, "Don't I look like a new person in Christ?" And my mom got a little tear in her eye, and she was like, "You look a lot the same," which I thought maybe meant that, she really missed me. So I've been telling this story. I've been an out queer for 20 years and telling this story mostly socially to illustrate how fervent a Christian I was when I was in high school. It was not until last summer that I found out what you probably have already guessed. I was Googling the Lord's Boot Camp obstacle course to show a picture of it to my girlfriend, and I found the Lord's Boot Camp on a list of less expensive, de facto, Christ-centered, anti-gay conversion camps. I have not mentioned this to my mother, and not just because it's been a while, and she's just accepted that my town boy swagger and my girlfriend they're just gonna stay with us. It's, even though both those things are true, but it's also that it was just so skillful. I'm so skillful. Like, my mom didn't just send me to a gay conversion camp or de facto gay conversion camp. She sent me to a de facto gay conversion camp where I went willingly, and I raised all my own money to get there, and she had me convinced for 20 years that this was all my own idea. I mean, come on, fair play to you, homophobic parent, fair play to you. But the final reason that I don't mention it to my mom is I spent a summer learning how to use power tools. And if you know anyone who looks like me, you know that Home Depot is kind of our dating app. So the summer that was supposed to make me less of a lesbian just ended up making me much better at picking up lesbians. And for that, I do not owe my mom a chewing out. I owe her a thank you note.
Kelli Dunham, let's hear it. Oh, goodness gracious, Kelli Dunham. Check her out. Go on YouTube. She's been doing the brick film animation of great bits and stories and jokes like the one you just heard. And, everyone, the Deals Go On exhibition, which is, the reason we're all here tonight. We're performing all these funny stories. The Deals Go On exhibition about our current president. Our current president's vice president, really big fan of conversion therapy, that guy. Google it if you didn't know. And if you didn't know, well, I wish I was as blissfully ignorant as you were. All right, everyone. I should mention before we wrap this show up, I've been mentioning that Deals Go On exhibition. That isn't just a virtual event like the one you're at right now. That is an actual thing going on right now, in person, by appointment only, at the actual gallery, Sleep Center in Manhattan. Again, I've said that URL a few times, but sleepcenterny.org. You can make a reservation there. You can actually go to that gallery and check out the Deals Go On exhibition. And this show, folks, I mean, that is pertaining a lot to the real estate, which is why we have these clever backgrounds behind us tonight. Most of the performers did. But this show really did pertain to the themes I talked about at the beginning: evil real estate and toxic masculinity and racism and homophobia, which all very unfortunately are themes that also pertain to our current president. So make a voting plan, folks. Get out there, phone bank some voters. So all these great artists can be doing exhibitions about something else. Before we end this old rodeo tonight, I just want to say thank you again to Simon, the curator, the public program curator, Haihong, the artist Kai, who is the artist who is creating the Deals Go On. Again, sleepcenterny.org. If you actually want to see his work in public. But folks, I really do also want to thank Rhonda Hansome, David Hu, Andrew Sanford, and Kelli Dunham, who all gave such great performances in this event tonight on these themes, unfortunately, that do pertain to our current president. I have been your host, David Lawson. Thank you all so much for watching tonight, folks. Stay safe. Go vote. Have a great night. Good night, folks.